of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This meeting is being live streamed by Chelmsford Telemedia and posted to the Chelmsford Public Schools website for interested community members to access and watch. In-person and public participation will be taking place tonight in accordance with the Chelmsford School Committee Public Participation Guidelines. Anyone speaking tonight during the public input portion of the meeting has notified the superintendent's office of their desire to speak and has been provided with these guidelines. Upon request, written comments received no later than 12 p.m. on the day of this meeting will also be read and made a part of the record of the meeting during the second public comment session. Are there any members of the press here? There are not. All right. Good night. Hello. Good night, everybody. All right. Good night.
Motion to adjourn.
Long day, long day.
Amen.
All right, our first order of business is to approve our minutes from, I'm gonna, back to the beginning here. From December 19th and from January 2nd. I'll take two motions on this.
Okay. Make a motion to approve the minutes from our meeting on December 19th, 2023.
Second?
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
4-0 in favor.
Make a motion to approve the minutes from our meeting on January 2nd, 2024.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
4-0 in favor. Okay, our Chelmsford student representatives are not here tonight. We asked them to stay at home and, stay safe. Does anybody have any good news?
Just a little bit of good news. There's an upcoming play at the McCarthy Middle School. So if you haven't got your tickets yet, you should. They're going to be doing Lion King Jr. And the dates, the first night, it was February 2nd, and it runs through Saturday the 3rd. So there's a matinee and an evening performance, both on Friday night and Saturday night. So please join the McCarthy Middle School Drama Club at the Lion King Jr.
Lion King Jr., okay.
Good news.
Oh, John has some good news.
Go, yes.
I have good news.
Yes.
So I was actually able to attend the event in Boston for the Byam Chorus at
Oh,
the
yeah.
State House. Mr. Fredette was there, looked great, represented Byam well, as he always does. But it was good. We had a bunch of different representatives there, and the kids sang great, and they got a tour of the building, which at least Ian was like just enthralled with like how old the building was.
Yeah.
So it ended up being just a really great event. There was a lot of parents there, and just positive, and I'm glad that we get to do it. So that's all.
Great, thank you. All right, anybody else? Okay, do we have anybody registered for public comments?
We don't.
All right, so moving to new business.
Yeah, we'll jump right into to new business. We have a presentation this evening from one of our strategic plan steering committees, and this group focuses on our social emotional learning goal. So we have Jason Fredette, who's the principal of Byam Elementary School, Shannon Bischoff, who is our coordinator for social emotional learning and counseling services, and the one and only Steve Murray, who is the principal of Chelmsford High School. So these three are the chairs of our social emotional committee, and I will turn it over to the group to present what some of the work that we did last year and then what we've been focusing on this year. So welcome and thank you for coming out tonight. Appreciate it, and we'll turn it over to you.
Okay. Thank you very much for having us. It's great to be in front of the school committee and anyone else who's watching or watching later to share a lot of the work that we've done over a couple of years now too. So while it breaks down into about 10 slides, it feels like it's a lot of work and condensed. So we'll try to give you some reference to all of that. But just wanted to acknowledge the members of the committee. Obviously, the three of us here who Jay just introduced are the steering committee, but we've had some wonderful support from other fellow administrators. Katie Sims, Director Coordinator of Health, PE, Family, and Consumer Sciences, and also the winner for the largest title in the district. Diana Fullreader, Principal of Center Elementary. Jason Ramala, who's the Assistant Principal at South Row Elementary. Christy Whittlesley, Department Coordinator of Fine and Performing Arts. Marilyn Sweeney, who's the Department Coordinator of Technology, Business, CHS TV, which is the second longest title. So we are certainly not short on words for titles here. Don't want to just go through and read the total theory of action, though, but this is one that's come out from a lot of work in our focus, which has certainly academic achievement across all of our subjects, particularly in math, this strategic plan. But we believe as certainly a district, and the three of us up here in our committee and all the work, that that goes really hand in hand with students' social emotional learning. When you have learned very important social emotional skills, the academic piece and that's striving for your best potential outcomes there really make a difference when we are really supporting students in such a way that they're feeling belong and they are a part of what the instruction is happening. So that will turn it over to us. Yep.
There we go. So this slide should be familiar to all of you. I think it's been presented when the other groups have come to present on academics and equity. I just want to point out how we are working towards measuring SEL growth data in the district. We are measuring it by percentage of students that report feeling a sense of belonging in schools across all grade levels, and percentages of students that report having positive relationships within the schools, both with peers and adults, grades K to 12. And just one thing I just want to mention about this slide is that, as we're digging into the work district-wide, we really are finding a lot of crossover between these content areas. For instance, we're working closely with the equity team and the human capital team. So we're just finding a lot of integrated components as we go forth with the work. And so we're forming a lot of subcommittees around our committee.
And as Shannon mentioned, these are the ways we're measuring our success. Yes, sorry. And that is by a sense of belonging, K through 12, and the other measure of success is the support of relationships. And with that, in order to measure that, we have three initiatives, school initiatives. At the next slide, we have.
Oops, sorry.
Our Our three initiatives, and the first one, Initiative 1, is utilizing SEL data collection and analysis tool, that's Panorama, to measure and respond to student data. Our second initiative is implementation of DEI practices and protocols at each level. And the third one is the review and enhance transition protocols and practices between levels to support students' SEL needs. We'll get into that next.
And it, no, pass the mic. And it breaks down perfectly, three initiatives and three of us up here, so we'll each take an initiative. I'm going to start off with the Initiative 1, which is our collection of actual data and analysis with Panorama. These slides are our most recent update, so this is really the action items we're working on currently. A lot of work has gone in to kind of get to this point as well. I do want to acknowledge a lot of the work that's gone on just with bringing Panorama to the district, which is a program that has tons of capability, not just in the SEL realm, but also through our academic realm and beyond. So we've been rolling this out pretty purposefully, starting with the admin team, getting training, and then through staff, and that continues to be embedded in all the work that we do in using this program. So the information that is here has really kind of been the point where we've gotten to, but a lot had gone on beyond that. So what we did last year was used it the first time to do any benchmark of data. This was also, it's not necessarily coming out in our presentation here, but we did also survey families and staff with this same tool, which is great too. So it is an all-encompassing tool. So our first was to analyze the student panorama growth data for 2022 and 23. So last year we did benchmark our students a little later time frame than we did this year, but we benchmarked our students grades 3 through 12 with Panorama, and then again in the end of the year in late May. Early June. And what we wanted to do is actually, this was happening to kind of take a step back and look at this as a district. So over the summer we had, during some of our work summer hours, we were able to look at that as a admin team and look at some of the trends that we saw in our student data. And then also as we came in, each school handled it a little differently, but a big part of our rollout with this SEL learning and the tool was reviewing our data in September. So that might have happened during opening meetings or staff meeting time or some PD times, but it did give us a deeper dive. The data is great because you can really look at the general aggregate and big data swaths, but you can also really nail down a lot of different things that you want to look for in different demographics and things. So it is great to be able to use that. It is always tough to find a time for all of us to meet together. When we do get together to really, with a task like that, it's helpful. But looking around schedules for some of that barrier for the admin to kind of look at it, you often get in your silo of the school and use your data a lot, but it is great to see how it looks either grades beyond you or across the data or across town. But then also setting up the data meetings too at the school level. So that might happen in grade levels, might happen by departments, but that you're able to look at this data in earnest so that we aren't just taking the data, but creating a plan. This year, we've already administered the fall 2023 data. And then we're going to be administering again the data, the assessment again in the fall. So when we do the fall survey, we're able to kind of give a time frame, and we're able to do it within pretty much the whole district does it in about a 2-week window, so that we get everybody done and it's maintains accurate. The questions they really break down into grades 3 through 5. Are the same questions, and then we have a 6 to 12 bank of questions. Same themes, and they tie right back into the things that we're looking at, that sense of belonging and the supportive relationships, but it certainly has a different flavor if you're a third grader and if you're a senior in high school. They're not the exact same questions. We really worked hard to make sure that everybody got that, and then setting up time again for this data. So we looked at last year's data kind of as a beginning and end date, but then also at a school level, we do want to look at the data that we got in the beginning of the year and be able to use that for planning purposes for interventions or tier 1 supports where you think maybe the whole school could use some theme topics or things like that. So it really gives us a great, kind of longer stretch look at things, but it did give us also very actionable things in the school year. And this year, too, what we were able to do as we sit, each principal sits on and hosts the school councils, we tied this right into our school improvement plans. And so we looked at data, and one of the things we'll say about this data, this is the first time we'll kind of look at it when we're looking at as our district plan, we're looking at kind of our end of the year to end of the year data, even though we do give this 2 times a year. At a school level, you're really looking at your beginning of the year data to your end of the year data. You hope that what you do and what you implement will make some changes from beginning to end of the year. So we're still looking at what kind of with this new instrument, how sensitive to change and how sensitive to the interventions and things we implement will happen. But what we can compare right now is actually the beginning of the year of 2022 to our beginning of the year of 2023. And it was across the board almost identical data. Very, very similar data. Now, that being said, we worked hard to get this up and running last year at Panorama, but not using all the pieces of intervention that we've done this place. So we're hoping that that does, is a little more sensitive to what we've done, and we can pick that up from the from beginning of the year to end of the year, but also, our big hope is over the time as we roll this plan out that it's going to increase our end of the year scores each year. And that is, something, and while you look at it and you look at the actual data, Chelmsford fared very well when we compared. It does compare a national norm with this. So we're normed very highly in a lot, and both belonging and supportive relationships. So it does allow you to kind of give you a comparison too. But it's, a program that, while we're doing the surveying, there's a lot more happening with Panorama too. I know I'm not going to do a whole Panorama discussion here, but it is things that teachers are using daily to look at student progress. When you have a profile of a student, it's not just the SEL information. We have all their academics, the MCAS gets loaded in, all of their benchmark assessments, their grades, their attendance. It's an amazing kind of dashboard to give you all that information. And then it allows you to kind of create all these things in it, whether it be intervention groups or things that you want to target. It gives you quite a bit of data, but also some really intuitive pieces that allows you to mark interventions and track them. So really been a big fan of that. I think we're growing as we do it. But we feel pretty good about this part of our initiative and our action steps so far.
Thank you, Jason. It's a good overview. It was hard not to jump in because I'm excited about some of the work
Feel
we're
like you
doing in
should
this
have jumped
area.
in. I didn't take a breath.
Yeah, you did great. So the next initiative that the SEL team is focusing on is implementation of DEI practices and protocols throughout the district. I'm going to hone in specifically on the target activities that we're working on as a steering committee. And then I will be back again later on in the school year to give you more global updates on things we're doing district-wide with our DEI committee within each school, because there's incredible things happening. So I know we don't have time for that tonight. So the 4 areas of action steps that we have prioritized as an SEL team is to look at integrating DEI initiatives into our work with MTSS. And district-wide, we have a strong MTSS team. Long before my time, Chelmsford put a lot of resources into MTSS, and now we're challenging those teams of teachers and admin and our champions of MTSS, our facilitators, to just approach this work with a DEI lens in everything that we do so that all of our interventions, all of our responsiveness to student needs is done with that DEI focus. The second priority area that we have is as a district-wide admin team, we want to provide professional learning to our staff and colleagues in the area of DEI. As Jason mentioned, we use Panorama to do a staff and a teacher survey in the spring to kind of guide and drive our PD for this year. We did identify 3 different areas of need from the staff and teacher surveys, and that was in cultural awareness, professional learning about equity, and educating all students. So directly in response to that, we built PD around those topic areas to support our staff learning. I know Jason will jump in to talk a little bit after we go through all the slides. Just the elementary team did a really collaborative, wonderful PD targeting these 3 priority areas, and I think it was really successful. We're now sharing out that PD throughout the district so that the other levels can grab onto that learning and bring it into the other levels, into the high school and the middle school. We also are including our family survey in the work that we're doing in terms of assessing the professional development that we need, because we want our community stakeholders and our families at home driving and guiding the work that we need to do as a district to respond to the needs. Overall, we had more than 1,400, I think it was 1,436 to be exact, not quite 1,500 responses to the family and caregiver survey that we gave out in the spring. And it was mostly favorable. It was what we found. Like, our percentages were high. Like, so we know families really like us here in Chelmsford, which is really, really good. But we as an SEL team wanted to dig a little bit deeper to make sure that the responses that we're receiving are from, globally represent all of our families in Chelmsford, and how can we administer the survey in even more accessible ways, even though we all did a great job doing paper copies, computer copies, showing up at different events to provide opportunities to get that feedback. But we just want to be as inclusive as possible and gathering that feedback to drive our work in this area. And so I think I did that. Yeah, touched on all of that. The third action step is around increasing our clubs and our affinity groups, both at the middle school and the high school. We definitely see this as an opportunity as we are now Parker and McCarthy are grade-based, and so we're going to dig in a little bit deeper in terms of providing those supportive and safe environments for kids to come together. The high school has 5 affinity groups, and the middle school has 1 right now, but there's a lot of conversation and communication happening between levels so that those wonderful action-oriented students at the high school want to support and help middle school. Some of the members of these groups also participated in the elementary school training I had mentioned that happened in the fall, where they came as a panel of students to provide learning and feedback for teachers on what it's like to be a student. of a vulnerable population. So they represented members from our Black Student Union, members from our Southeast Asian community, our Latinx community, our GSA community. So a variety of students came together to educate staff. The feedback we got on that, and I want our families and our students at home to hear this, is that the most impactful learning for those teachers was directly from those students. So we want to take that cue as we go forth and plan PD to see how we can have that translate in all the other levels. So the last action step is around providing professional learning opportunities directly for our MTSS facilitators. Our facilitators are our champions of our MTSS work throughout the district. And as we are integrating our DEI practices and our MTSS, we want to make sure that those champions and leaders of MTSS have the appropriate training so that they feel that they can go forth and continue to do their new role. When we wrote the facilitator job description this year, we did add DEI components of it as a requirement to the role, because we really wanted to be as transparent as possible that, this goes hand in hand in terms of MTSS, SEL, and DEI. So I think that does it for my slide.
And then the third initiative, the third initiative is to review and enhance transition protocols and practices between levels to support students' SEL needs. So we have two activities there. And as we said, we're going to continue to review and establish transition protocols and practices for students at all levels, in particular the transitional levels, pre-K to K, 4 to 5, 6 to 7, and then 8 to 9, and then 12 to postgraduate. And I know this school committee and Dr. Lang and Dr. Hirsch were really supportive in us getting the high school meeting. Alex Cunningham, a director of a career college readiness center, she has been really putting a great deal of time into those kids who do not go into further studies, and they go right into the workforce, and she's providing avenues for them for help with those transitions. And some of those transitions look like looking with mass help in terms of finding internships, working with our kids to talk about how do you do an interview, how do you create a resume, how do you present yourself. So these are all critical transition periods, and so we're going to be looking at in the second half of this year, what do those policies look like and how we want to change? Because we know the middle school had big transitions this past year. Now that staff and students who've all changed buildings have got about half a year in, we're going to spend the next half of the year looking back what we did over the spring and the summer and what we did this past fall and what we can do to enhance the kids' experience and enhance parents' experience as well. And then with that is the providing social opportunities for peers to encourage positive peer relationships and develop it during the transition periods. I know for myself, I have two kids, and there's about a 7-year gap between them, and we've been through Byam, and the first time around, I knew a lot of my son's friends, parents that is. And so 7 years later, I'm a little on the older side, and I was very happy that Byam provided that, because I actually got to meet people now of my daughter's age and their parents, and it benefits my daughter and everyone else. So those opportunities that Byam, the elementary, provide, we're going to look at that and see how we can enhance those, what we can continue with, and what do we need to add. But that, for me, that was a great example of it was not only a benefit for my daughter, it was also a benefit for myself and my wife as well. So those are our transition steps in terms of those major levels. Any questions?
Any questions?
I have a lot, but I think one of the things is that, like you said, Sean said, that there's specific things I'd like to know that I think are probably not part of this presentation.
Okay.
For example, what was the initial data? Where are we going with that data? What things are we doing in order to improve that data? Those kinds of things, I think those are very specific things that probably are not part of this presentation. It's just for us to know what's going on. So I'll just ask one specific one here on Initiative 1. You had talked about the fact that you've broken down the survey, I think, between 3rd to 5th and then 6th to 12th. What was the thinking behind that and not specifically doing something for the middle level of 6, 7, and 8 or 7 and 8?
That's Panorama's breakdown. So this is a nationally normed tool. So be able to use that, you do use those questions. And I mean, I guess I can speak a little to the 3 to 5. You know, they're very developmentally appropriate questions, and maybe I'll have Shannon and Steve talk a bit more to the secondary questions. They are developmentally appropriate. I think at third grade, when our teachers are administering that, they feel like, okay, we're getting just about that level of, you know, we're able to read the questions aloud, but, you know, they're concepts that are really kind of they're forming in third grade. And the questions, now, that doesn't mean we look at the data in those big wide swaths either. So we can look at the data school by school. You can even break it down by a grade level. You can look at it in different ways. But just when I look at the 3, 5, and 6 to 12, that's the questions on the survey that we were in, and Shannon and Steve maybe talking more of the secondary
Yeah, I
questions.
think Jason did a perfect job answering. It's just how Panorama groups their questions developmentally. They have questions for grades 3 to 5, and then they have separate questions for grades 6 to 12. But each component of the data is broken down at the school level, at the grade level, at the demographic. You know, we can look at we can break it down to the minute child or look globally as a grade. So we can manipulate that data to respond to it. And, you know, underneath all data are these individual students that are trying to have their voice. So I don't want to lose sight of that, you know, in all the, you know, the global data we're looking at. But it's a wonderful tool. I'm happy to walk anybody through it. You can look district-wide at the data. You can look school-based. You can look just at middle school, high school. So the data is easy to use. But how the questions are broken down in terms of how we can use it as a measurement tool, it lended itself to that.
And it's really interesting to track this in SEL because you're looking at grades transitioning each year. So the kids are moving along. So you can't really say, okay, well, all the kids in grade 3 are, you know, have this data. It doesn't really follow grade 3. It's really following them into the next year. So I'm sure when you're reporting out and looking at these things, that's how you're looking at it, is what's happening into the next year and how it's transitioning out into that.
Speaking from having that one transition, so we get the 1 year, you know, so the 1 year of data. So our fourth grade teachers, it's great. They have all this data ready-made for them as their fourth graders walk in for third grade. But the strength of this is going to track. So, right, the incoming receiving fifth grade teachers are going to be able to have this data accessible to them to see who's coming to them. And they're going to be taking this again in those you know, in the fall of their fifth grade year, these transitions. But interesting you bring that up, Maria. When we were kind of identifying this, at our initial work of this, there were weaknesses in some of this data with 2 groups. And it was big transition groups that happened during the COVID year. It was the group that went to high school and the group that went to middle school. So the fourth graders going to fifth, they went to not a traditional fifth grade experience, and our ninth graders. And that showed up. That showed up in the data that we looked at. It was vocal data at the time from the MCAS, but that was very clear. Wow, this is transitions are big, and a lot of that data and SEL work drove us towards a transition kind of initiative, really, quite honestly. But it is good questions, and we'd be happy. The 3 of us could talk this data for hours with you too. So you need to do be a subcommittee.
Yeah, and I think
If
just
you
to,
could do me a favor. So we talk about Panorama, and we talk about DEI and MTSS. So if we could go back to initiative number 1. So when we're giving the SEL survey, that is a product that Panorama has available to us, correct? But
Yeah.
Panorama is also an analysis tool. So you're looking at a lot of different types of data in there. It's not just SEL. So you're looking SEL, attendance, grades, conduct referrals. I don't know if that's correct.
they call it a student success platform.
Okay.
And so
Right.
for our purposes with the SEL group, you know, we're honing in on those specific questions related to our target growth areas.
Okay. So, because I think, you know, I don't want to say we use them interchangeably, we don't, but it might sound like we do. And so I think it's important. We've actually had a chance to look at Panorama, like the student platform, is that what you called it? But the problem is because we can't just see a blank one, right? I think that's what the problem we discovered. We can't show it here. So it makes it really hard for people, if you've never seen it
understand it.
before, to understand what you may be talking
Yeah.
about.
I might be
So-
able to, you know, that's a great question, and I might be able to get like an account that is a confident, no, can't.
I'm
You tried.
working with them on what they can and cannot produce. It's
Okay.
just hard to do a presentation on it because there's student information on there. So to have like a sandbox account, they have one, but they're only letting it be used limitedly because
Right.
that's their major, that's what they use
Right,
to
right.
sell the product, obviously. And it may or may not have all of our data in there, so it gets a little confusing. So trying to come up with some creative way to show you something live without showing you something.
Yeah, as I said, because I think it's important, because it's hard to capture, I think, what you're talking about unless you actually get a chance to see what this student platform looks like and what the data points are that you're looking at.
The 4 areas that and I apologize if Linda's already gone over this with the school committee and families at home, but it's academics, attendance, behavior, and then SEL.
Right.
And SEL is broken down by competencies, SEL competencies, and sense of belonging are 2 subcategories of SEL. So if that helps a little bit, just to have a visual.
And it's
Yeah.
one-stop shopping too with that.
Right. It's fantastic.
Instead of running to one platform
Yeah.
or MCAS, SC, run into your Cumulative folder, it's all there, and it really showed the benefits of it when we did the PD work in the fall.
Right.
Teachers.
And I would say too, beyond just the student information, this is where we have that data for our surveys of staff and families.
Right.
So that is also ties directly, well, not as much into our conversation tonight, into our PD.
Right.
So this is what this is kind of what families are saying. This is, information that's good for us, at the school level or district level. And then directly, Shannon and I mentioned our PD, we were taking our results directly in our PD to target areas that were one of our weaker results. So it is, and we're learning all the time. I think we are really uncovering things. It is a very dynamic platform, and we're trying to utilize it as much as we can in all facets of what we do.
So Shannon, I'm sure you're familiar with DESA. So I know I fill out a DESA survey on my students. Is this something similar that we're doing with teachers as well? Are they filling out surveys on students?
So that's a great question. So if you notice the data that we're sharing, we're talking about target areas of grade 3 to 12. So one thing that we might be looking at for grade K to 2 is to have a teacher provide some input for us. And we know that that is somewhat subjective data, but we feel like it's really critical and important to have that K to 2 lens. But the students are completing the survey, grade 3 through 12, and with developmentally appropriate SEL questions that are all evidence research-based from Panorama.
Okay. And I'm not sure if you can do this, but you were talking about the integration of DEI into MTSS. Could you give an example of what that might look like?
Yeah, so one thing that the DEI team is, one of the priority action steps that they're working on, we have 4 subcommittees of our DEI committee. I apologize, it's going to be a little confusing, but our classroom and curriculum subcommittee of DEI created an equity checklist for the classroom. So it's a way to, and I want to credit the classroom admin, the building-based admin, because they did training with their teachers around this. And it's a way that teachers can, sit in their classrooms and sort of approach every lens and angle of being a child in that classroom with a DEI focus and lens. So that's just one example of, how we can provide differentiation for all of our different learners in the classroom setting from that lens.
I have another example, if you will bear with me here, I guess.
Please.
We have at BIAM for years the SAIL program, which is our students with autism. And so our 2 SAIL teachers came to our PBIS MTSS meeting to talk about how we could better really kind of address kind of the belonging of kind of neurodiverse students. And I think we've noticed over time, really since COVID, I think students' exposure to really neurodiverse students has declined a bit, where it was something we maybe took for granted. These kids had been with these kids in CHIPS, and we had this program for years and years. And I think as students kind of came off of COVID and had, more kind of familial experiences and structured and away from kind of being out in public as much, not as much opportunity. So it was something we were taking for granted. For the newer students, we're thinking of ways of how are we going to introduce when you see someone that might be nonverbal or use a device. That needs to be directly taught. right? There's a certain way to interact with a student who has a device and speaks with using an iPad or a talker. And that's something that we think about year one. How do we prepare our students now who come in, to kindergarten or first grade and have never had any experience, yet now they have classmates like this. So kind of that might not have always been our same platform, but we've been very intentional about putting that into our MTS and PBIS team.
So by doing that, you've actually created a system of support both for your students who are not neurotypical and your students who are neurotypical.
Correct, yep.
All right, great, thank you. Do you have any other questions? Anybody else? Well, thank you very much for coming in tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you, guys, appreciate it.
Yes.
See you tomorrow, better be on your game.
That's right.
Freshman orientation tomorrow.
Oh, really? Wow.
Oh, no, you don't. Denied.
Drive safely, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you guys very much.
Thanks for coming.
We just talked about the fact I'm going to freshman orientation tomorrow.
I think it's great that it's happening already.
Linda.
I've been here since first grade this town.
That is what.
Thank you, guys, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
She's actually been here since kindergarten.
Moving on to item number 2 for tonight. Joanna is going to share with you the fiscal '24 budget report, the update. This is our second quarter financials that run through December 31st, 2023. So Joanna will share that with you.
Thank you. In your packet is our regular quarterly documents, a cover memo explaining some of the variances, the year-to-date budget report out of our general ledger system, so all the expenses by account number in the DESI function code, a grant and revolving fund summary, and the middle school and high school student activity account balances by club. In the September, the first quarter report, many of the variances kind of already came to light because so much of our budget is labor-driven. And those have stayed the same pretty much on our $70,700,000 operating budget. So classroom teachers is still favorable. The number is approximately $197,000. The main reason is because when we hire a new person who comes in at less than a master's step 3, that's a favorable variance. And then this is true in the specialist teacher category as well. So that's like ELL teachers, special ed teachers, tutoring supports, reading. That is still favorable by $206,187. The other reason we are favorable, which is kind of tough to predict, is if a teacher takes an approved unpaid leave of absence. The new category on this report is transportation costs. And at the moment, this category is unfavorable by $130,000. And the main reason for that is our homeless transportation and our special ed transportation. And we'll watch this through the year. Homeless transportation is very difficult to forecast because you never know who's moving in or moving out of your district and needs that transportation. And that's a cost share with the other district wherever there's a school of origin and a school of residence. The special ed transportation, we just needed extra buses and vans to get these students in district as well as out of district. We have an opportunity, we could either take an area that's favorable and transfer it into this category, and then the other leverage we have is we could take a greater offset to our transportation revolving fund for the general ed transportation, that's the big buses, and become on target in this category. While $130,000 is a lot of money, just a reminder that this overall category is $4.469 million. So $4.4 million, it's a big category. Employee separation costs, in December, we were favorable by $140,000. However, we did pay the retirement incentive for those people who retired last June and wanted their incentive in January. That Those payments went out January 12th, so when you see the next quarter report, that variance is 0. And then tuitions, this is the overall of our special ed out-of-district tuitions. It all goes to this one account for now, and then we'll do offsets to the circuit breaker revolving fund. The second little chart is probably the best way to look at it overall. And right now, we estimate that our tuitions are going to be $7 million. That's cash out the door. We budgeted a little bit less than that, 6.7 million. The circuit breaker offset, we know that number has to be the 2.5 million because we're at the cap of what's in our circuit breaker fund. 2 new items came up that were not in our original budget. One is the credit from Valley Collaborative, and the board voted that we will receive a credit of $208,640. We also prepaid this year's tuition last June. That's 1.5 million. So overall, the category is going to be favorable, we think, by $1.4 million. And in those funds, this committee will need to decide, we could reallocate that to one-time purchases, or another opportunity could be to prepay fiscal 25 tuitions. With these funds, we have some flexibility there. And then the last chart is just a reminder of our school choice revolving fund. We use this to fund the one-to-one computer initiative. So that balance right now is about 2.7 million. We'll still receive school choice revenue January through June. And then the offset to pay for those one-to-one computers is $181,000, and we are projecting our balance of this fund to be 2.6 million at the end of this fiscal year. Any questions on the variances on the operating budget?
Maybe questions? Your memo was very helpful,
Thank you.
very helpful.
It's helpful to me, too. Okay.
Just, I guess, on the munis report itself, so we talked about it already, the whole thing with the salaries at the middle schools.
Oh, yeah.
That's still, I don't know if you.
That's all fixed.
What's that?
That is all corrected.
Because, all right, so just, because they just still show all the negative balances and
Well, but if you look, so if you go to like page,
6, I think it is.
thank you. Yep. If you go to page 6. So last quarter, we were over encumbered, like that encumbrance didn't go away when we moved teachers between the middle school. So not all of them did, some of them did. So the vendor helped us, and there was a way to reset our encumbrances. So overall, the category is correct, but what you will see is like we are maybe unfavorable in McCarthy grade 8, but we're favorable in what used to be Parker grade 8. And that won't go away. We never moved the budget. The budget set last spring still had McCarthy and Parker at all 4 grade levels. So those variances will stay put unless we change the budget, and I wouldn't do that at this point.
Okay,
yep.
I understood what it was.
Yep.
I see where
Yep.
there's, 211%, but there's
Yeah.
0% too.
Right,
I knew that,
yes.
I just didn't know if
Yeah.
those numbers are just gonna stay like that.
These are going to stay like
Okay,
that.
all right.
Yep. Yep, good point.
Any other questions? Thank you.
The next is the grant and revolving fund. That's the kind of 2-page summary in color. The top are the entitlement grants. So Title I, special ed, carryover from 2023, as well as the new grants in 2024. You may not have seen some of the new grants in 2024 on the last report. Some of those were approved, I think, in October. And they are all on track with, it's one one gauge to see how you're doing with your grant is how are you spending on your grant, not just your implementation plan with your grant. And then the lower section is the private grants. And the circuit breaker revolving fund is on there too. We're at, I don't think I had this number at the end of last quarter. We know that our circuit breaker funds for this year are going to be 2.5 million. DESI released that number, I think, at the end of October.
On the grants, that last, the first one there, the ESSER, that's our last of the last of the Mohicans?
That's the last,
And it has to be paid, spent by,
September 30th, 2024.
okay, so this year, okay.
Feels like you've been watching that day.
Yes, I,
You can technically use the first quarter of next year, next fiscal year.
September 30th.
We have some plans in place, I assume, for,
We're working on it.
okay,
Yep.
all right. I just noticed like they come off and come off, and
Yeah.
it seems to be the last one.
Dwindling down.
Yeah,
It's the last one, yep.
great.
Yep. And then the second page is the revolving funds, school nutrition, athletics, childcare, transportation, turf fields, that kind of thing. Any questions on the grants or revolving funds? Okay. The next item in your handout is the student activity accounts for the high school and each middle school. The high school has $248,000, and there's all their clubs and sports. The McCarthy has a little over $36,000, and the Parker has close to $50,000. So a little increase since the September report because there's been more activity now that the students are back and clubs are going. Okay.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Nope.
Okay. Thank you, Joanna. So that would just, maybe just a motion to accept the report as a report of progress.
Motion to accept the budget report, second quarter financials as a motion, report of progress.
Second. I had the easy part.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
4-0 in favor.
Thank you. Thank you, Joanna. Staying with Joanna for a second, we have just a couple of fiscal '24 current year budget transfer requests.
Thank you. Yes, there's two transfers for fiscal '24 in front of you tonight. The first one is for $1,600. Now, I thought I was done coming to the committee asking for money for the McCarthy School science labs. However, we needed one more shift of, we talked about the abatement that was needed once they started working on the plumbing, and they needed one more shift, and that was $1,600. So the first one is requesting it comes from a salary account where we know we're going to be favorable to the capital land and building account where that project's been recorded. And then the second budget transfer is a new one that you haven't heard about. This is within the science accounts. The coordinator would like to transfer money from his supplies into his equipment account for $6,000 to buy some items for the high school science labs used in AP biology and chemistry. And I listed some of the types of equipment he would like to purchase.
All right, want a motion? Okay.
Please.
All right, I'll do the first one. I make a motion to approve the FY 2024 local operating budget transfer of $1,600 from the account noted to the local capital land and buildings account as presented.
Are there any other questions or discussion? Okay, Dennis?
Aye.
John? Maria?
Aye.
Aye, 4-0 in favor.
Second one, I make a motion to approve this FY 2024 local operating budget transfer of $6,000 from the account noted to the CHS Science Equipment account as presented.
All right, any other or questions or discussion?
I was going to ask Joanna, what's a micropipette?
It's,
No, we already had this discussion. Sorry,
That's science humor.
it's nice, you must, sorry.
All right, Dennis?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Maria?
Aye.
Aye, 4-0 in favor.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Actually, before we leave Joanna for the night, she prepared just a memo, just to kind of alert the community that we do have our kindergarten registration coming up, and that happens at the end of the month. Do you want to just share the dates and a little bit of
Yes.
information on that?
Kindergarten registration, so that's your student entering kindergarten next year, will be January 30th and January 31st here in this room, actually, from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. And what we do now is a family will sign up for an appointment, and then the school will contact that family and then zone in on the 15-minute increment that works best for everybody, and we handle it that way. And then we'll see how many we get, and then hopefully most people will register in January, because then we can get a good idea of how many kindergartners we're going to have, and it helps with our budget planning. Then we'll have another one in April. And then families can come in anytime to just and register, but it January 30th and 31st, 9 to 6 here.
Thank you.
Great, thank you for putting that together.
Thank you.
Item 5th on the agenda this evening is just the personnel report for the month of December. Again, just to kind of track the personnel happenings within the district. December wasn't a particularly busy month for us. We did have a few new hires to the district, basically offsetting a few resignations to the district. We had one assignment change within a paraprofessional category in the district. No action required, just filling you in on who's coming and who's leaving the district. Any questions? Nope. 6th item on the agenda this evening, the next 16 and 7 are just a couple of reports for you. So as you recall, we're actually members of the Valley Collaborative. That's our special education collaborative. And part of the board's charge is to make sure that each of the 9 districts that comprise Valley receive a copy of the annual report and then receive the newsletters. That's part of the legislation that's required. So Chris Scott, who is the director, has shared with us the Valley Collaborative annual report for 2023. And we just need a motion to accept the report as a report of progress and place it on file to comply with the legislation.
Okay, make a motion to accept the Valley Collaborative 2023 annual report as a
Report of progress.
report of progress. I can't remember the term. Report of progress.
Second.
All right, do you have any questions, discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
4-0 in favor.
Perfect, thank you. And item number 7 is the Valley Collaborative 2024, so this is the current, the winter newsletter. Again, just another communication from Valley highlighting some of the work that's taking place there.
Just to point out, Superintendent Lang is now the chair of the board at the Valley Collaborative.
It's very exciting.
So,
I will say, in the newsletter or the report, they had a list of staff who've been there for the number of
Yeah.
years. They've had a pretty steady,
They really have.
group of people working there. And then the other thing I wanted to mention is I had a chance to work with Peter, oh gosh, let me see if I can find his last name here. He and I did a workshop together this summer, and he's started taking his kids outdoors. They climb Mount Willard. It was a really good article on that in here as well. So,
Yeah, no, it's a dedicated staff. We actually had our annual board meeting. We were invited a lot of stakeholders last week. And the staff is a very loyal staff. There's a lot of them that have been with the collaborative for quite some time. Truly care about the kids and the programming that they offer, and they keep expanding. So they
Yep.
do have some type of an outdoor club now.
yeah, Peter Lorient.
They do have different trips that they take the kids on. They've really been expanding their work placements for different students at this collaborative, so they really are doing some great work.
Yeah.
And I got elected to be the chair of the board this past year, but I really enjoy it. It's a good group to be working with.
Yeah, there's some good articles in there. I
Yeah,
would
so they
recommend
really
people
do.
check them out.
So that would be another one I would just recommend accept as a report of progress.
newsletter.
Please.
Okay. Make a motion to accept the Valley Collaborative 2024 winter newsletter as a report of progress.
Second.
Questions or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
4-0 in favor.
Thank you very much. And last on the agenda this evening for me is just an approval of one field trip request. This is students at McCarthy Middle School who are enrolled in the French World Language Program. This is an annual trip that they take to Quebec City, and this is April 26th to 28th. Would recommend approval of this trip so that they can start soliciting participation with families and plan accordingly.
Okay, I make a motion to approve the McCarthy Middle School field trip to Quebec, Canada on April 26th to 28th, 2024 for students enrolled in French classes.
All right, any questions or discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
4-0 in favor.
Thank you very much. That wraps up my portion.
Okay, does anybody have any liaison reports?
I went to 4 meetings, so let's see. The first one was the high school PTO. They had a great turnout again. They're way into already planning for the after prom, which will be on May 29th. One of the things they're running this month is a dining to donate at the establishment on the 29th of this month all day. So if you order anything from there, it's going to go towards the after prom. They are also doing quite a bit of staff appreciation, and they have something planned coming up in February. And they were already looking into what's happening with the end of the different semesters and how they're gonna participate in some of those things. So the PTO is doing extensive work. And they did a fundraiser over the holidays, and that raised a little bit of money towards their budget. So that was the high school. Then I went to the middle school PTOs. And they have so much going on. They're looking for additional volunteers to transition some of the roles. So anybody interested should reach out to either Allison or to anyone else who is part of the Parker PTO. And also for McCarthy, they were looking for some folks too. Okay, they've got some things looking ahead, staff appreciation again, they're doing it. They have Riverhawks game coming up on February 9th. The Harlem Globetrotters game is coming up on February 12th. They're doing a dining to donate that's quite different. It's WECO. You order food online, it gets delivered to you, and you prepare it and so on. So different menus, WECO if you're interested. So between January 17th and February 13th, it's joint schools, and they will benefit from it. And then finally, I went to the Center PTO, and those guys always amaze. They have a tremendous turnout. They have co-chairs for just about anything and for any position. And they also have shadows, which is really nice because a person will get to shadow a current position if they're going to transition into next year. One of the big things going on for them right now, the Taste of Chelmsford, the way that they run it now is on. They have a wonderful website themselves that you can just go onto, and you'll get all the activities and everything that's going on. And so I would strongly recommend doing that. That was it.
Busy week.
It was a very busy week. I was out every night.
Anybody else?
Just Superintendent Lang and
Oh, yeah.
Marie and I attended the Permanent Building Committee meeting. We happened to notice that they had something on the agenda about the building project, so we popped in. Superintendent Lang gave a nice overview of the project. Nice group. I guess that committee was formed originally as a building committee way back when, so they were very interested in what we're doing. In talking with Donna, I offered to serve as a liaison between the two, to our committee and that committee in case something else comes up. If and another agenda item comes up about the building project, and then if we have anything we want to bring back to them, could do that too, so.
Yeah, I would imagine that that's probably not going to really get going until somewhere down the road.
Yeah, I think it was good. I hadn't been to that committee meeting in a long time, so I think it was good to kind of reconnect and whatnot. But yeah, I think that work will begin a little later on this spring, probably in the April to June timeframe when we have to put the building committee together for the project. But certainly a group we want to keep informed and involved as much as we can along the way.
All right.
We
Okay.
braved another storm to do that one, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that was snowy that night.
Yeah.
I had South Row last week. Unfortunately, there was a snowstorm. I think it was on Sunday, and so we were still kind of cleaning up from that. And I think a lot of people stayed home, because of the road conditions and whatnot. So it was a just good opportunity to get caught up about, some of the things that they have going on, through this winter and spring. Tomorrow, we have the Council of Schools, 7 o'clock at McCarthy, and on Thursday is the Chelmsford Friends of Music at 6:30 at the library. So, does anybody have any questions? All right. We have any public comment?
We don't.
Okay, then with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 4-0 in favor. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.